Welcome into another episode of Stupodity, the biggest podcast in the world, and one of the final episodes of Stupodity, as we are going to rebrand this thing very, very soon. Mikey A., you are a big part of Stupodity. We'll have more information for you on that in the coming days and weeks here. But Mikey A., are you sad that Stupodity is going away, something that you were a big part of?
I am a little sad. I mean, there's nothing like trying to impress people like I did when this first came out by showing them a podcast with a picture of the host sitting on a toilet. I remember showing that to my mother-in-law, my future mother-in-law at the time, and
Yes.
her just going, and this is who my daughter wants to marry.
Not the guy in the toilet, you. I
No,
mean,
but
yes.
I was
Then she'd be
proud of it.
marrying me, right?
I was proud of it.
Right. I'm proud of it as well. It was the biggest podcast in the world at one point. It was bigger than Oprah. It was number one everywhere. Tony Reali is going to join us. His show is coming to an end around the horn. I am sad about this. Tony Reali is on the Mount Rushmore of beloved people to ever work at ESPN, and around the horn, which started, I think, 23 years ago. What a run. The final episode is coming up this Friday, Mike. That's sad.
That's over half my life. Over half my life around the horn has been on, and now it's just ending.
I know. And Tony Reali has been the host of that show for 21 years, I believe, since 2004. He's going to join us here in a second as the final episode is coming up on Friday. And so I am interested in Tony's feelings headed into the final episode, and I want to hear about what's next for our friend Tony Reali. Mike, are you sad that Around the Horn is going away?
I'm probably more sad that Around the Horn is ending than Stupodity because Stupodity is going to get rebranded. Around the Horn is not.
Right. Okay. Well, should I be upset that Tony Reali has, or anyone for that matter, at Around the Horn, that they haven't reached out to me to make a final appearance on the show?
It's definitely something we need to ask him about. But the thing I want to ask him about is give me a name of somebody who would say something bad about you. That's who I want to know if there's anybody that he knows would say something bad about Tony Reali, because I don't think there is one.
Oh, I'm certain he knows somebody, and his name is Tony Kornheiser. Why are there 9 exclamation points next to his name?
Why are there 9 exclamation? Who has more exclamation than I? Oh, wow.
Because
Nobody.
It's not Tony, it's Tony!
Mike, how are you? Pleasure to
good.
meet you.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you.
My man, Stu. How are we?
How are you, Tony?
Doing great, man. I really am. People are talking to me like I'm dying, but I'm doing great. This is like, especially you get Levitard. It's just like, how are I'm
Yes.
doing good, man.
Right.
I am
Yes.
going out of my own term, not on my own term. I'm definitely not going out of my own terms, but I'm going out of my own terms on Friday on this with the way I'm doing the show. So I'm happy about that.
How do you feel? What are the emotions like in this final week?
I can't even get my head around how many people are reaching out. You and you call, I pick up the phone. There's
Right.
some calls I can't even get to this point right now. I mean, it's so there's a lot of that, which is why I was doing it all along. The connection,
Yes.
I feel it. I really do. So when someone like Nick Wright on TV says it's the most important show of all time, I'm like, easy, Romeo. But you could say that. I wouldn't say that. So
It's a great show, Tony. People have fallen in love with the show. I mean, it's a 24-year run. It's on your television every day, 5 o'clock. Boom, it's there. There are very few things you can count on the media, and this is one of those things. And it's going.
John,
away,
you and
so
I have
people
a
are upset.
similar. We have a similar work ethic. I think, honestly. I mean, everyone who has radio has his work ethic. To be blunt about it, I really value the. I'm going to work every day, and I'm going to put up a number. I looked up at one point. And someone said Regis Philbin's in the Guinness Book of World Records for 50,000 shows or something like that. He started at 23, and at some point I'm like, "All right, Reg, coming for you."
Right. Yes.
I
Yes.
want to put up a number. I want to work every day. So when I was able to say or find out from Wikipedia, you tell me if this is true, that we outdid Jerry Springer show and Oprah Winfrey show and David Letterman, well then that gets me to a place of feeling really proud.
Yeah. Yeah, and fortunate. It's
And
an
fortunate.
uncommon
I mean,
run in our business. As
Yeah,
you
we know what this is. I mean, on Monday, Friday's your last day. That's what they usually tell you. I've had I've used this expression, the Italian goodbye. Not the Irish goodbye. I've been saying goodbye for months, it feels like. My plan was to thank everybody, and reach out and type. Then there was a million people in and just it's a lot. But I feel it.
Right. Yeah. You feel the love though, Tony.
I do. I really do.
Yep. And the appreciation. How did this show come to fruition? How did this show partner with ESPN? I know you weren't the host at the beginning.
Yes,
it was Max Kellerman for the first 2 years. You took over at 2004. And I want to ask you about that. But the show in general, who came up with the idea of Around the Horn?
So that's a little bit for me out of my total knowledge. I know where I was. I was at PTI is a breakaway hit for Kornheiser, Wilbon, Eric Reinhold, Matt Keller, the producers, and then by a greater extension, Jim Cohen and Mark Shapiro and John Walsh. These are ESPN names in 2001. I mean, and then the idea was, well, that's working at 5:30, 5 o'clock. Can we get another show and gamify it a little bit? And at some point, maybe Ride Home was hearing about it, and maybe it would be a full Ride Home hour. I don't think that didn't happen. Because then Bill Wolf, another producer, these are names of TV, lore, decided he would now, and I think he really worked on the game show element of it. And Max Kellerman became the host of that show, and putting sports writers on. So at some point, there's a thread that runs through Bill Wolf, Max Kellerman, and some other great names, Brad Como, Susan Katz. And that was the first 200 or so episodes of Around the Horn. At some point, they may have stopped halfway through. I filled in no fewer than 10 appearances on that show when I was just that boy, because Tim Calishaw's camera broke one day and they needed somebody to be on the show. Or Kellerman had a sty in his eye. I remember that one because I wore his clothes on the show. It was just literally
so good.
We need somebody to fill in right now. So I, of course, was aware of the show and I got a phone call on a Sunday night. This is during the Patriots-Panthers Super Bowl. These are one of these stories you hear people in the business have. And you're like, what is this? I got a phone call in the middle of the Super Bowl, not soon after Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake had their wardrobe malfunction, which was a big global story, right?
Yes.
Say, can you fill in tomorrow on ESPN's Around the Horn as the host? We're in a contract thing, and this is what it is. I'm like, I'll fill in tomorrow again. I've done it 10 times, And then I did that first show. That was an amazing sweat experience. It was Levitardian sweat,
That's a thick sweat, man.
That's a big sweat. When we did PTI, we had to bring in the industrial fan that you see I sweated through my clothes. I mean, I don't know exactly how I made it through that episode. I watched it with Pablo just this week for the first time in my life. And it was a watchable show, John. I was like, oh, that passes. That's a good show. I was proud of it, which I didn't think. I don't remember it that way. I remember being, slightly more. I was 25. So I did that show. I did the next show, finished out the week. I didn't let go. I was doing Stat Boy and I was doing Around the Horn out of Washington, D.C. for the next 12 years.
What do you remember about that first show? Is there anything? Do you remember?
I remember. I remember a couple things. I only had one suit. These are the things you remember, right? I remember saying a prayer before I went on the air. I was still, a boy who was, saying his prayers before he goes to sleep. Now you're going to bring in a video of me in my first communion with the big glasses, looking like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But I was that guy. So I remember that being important to me. I remember wearing a suit with shoulder pads. Which is a good look for a skinny guy like me.
That's how long you've been hosting this fucking show, Reali. Jesus Christ, it was a different look back
Shoulder
then.
pads were in that point, my friend. They really were. And then I remember, I remember Bill Plaschke winning. I remember that. It was Plaschke versus Mariotti. And one of them made a very, our kids are watching Janet Jackson type argument, and we were all like, out of our minds because that was just an absurd moment in television. So I remember Plaschke winning.
At least you didn't get a heavy story for your first show.
That was true. Now I'm working with the producers there. I can't remember writing that show. That would have been the producer writing the entirety of the show, and I'm just in the moment. But I did go back and watch it, and there was a lot of good mutes. I was proud of that show and this show throughout its history really fit. I wouldn't say my personality completely because I'm not the type to turn somebody's microphone off. That's not me. I amplify.
Right.
But
it's the meanest thing you've ever done. I mean,
it
Jesus.
really is.
Yeah.
I mean, John, I'll be honest with you. I struggled with it because I thought it could be too abrasive for somebody.
Right.
This first couple years, I struggled with
Really
being the omnipotent. I was a stat boy and I can correct people, and I was a smart aleck. But the omnipotent host who would get the final say over Hall of Famer Bob Ryan, Hall of Famer Jackie McMullen, that was a little bit too much for me. So it took years of evolving. But what I wanted to say was the show meets my energy. You know this about me, John.
Yes.
So that first show was high octane, and I've actually dialed down the speed of the show through the years for a couple of reasons. And you could tell me it was better when it was fast. It was better when it was only 6 panelists. And I absolutely, you could feel that way. I feel that way some days, and other days I feel like it's great that we have a stable of 15 people and we can have someone who worked in radio like yourself on the show, John, and not just deadline writers for columns for papers, right? So every show evolves and adapts, has to, needs to be on what we were 23 years. So I've adjusted the speed sometimes, but I still appreciate that type of energy.
When did you start feeling comfortable hosting that show?
It had to be 2 to 3 years, if not more. I mean, we're talking 500 episodes. I didn't have a contract with ESPN that first year at all. I was on a day-to-day rate for a 25-year-old kid from Fordham. That was great. Yes. I mean, a day-to-day rate. So I wasn't married. So that was wonderful. I was doing Stat Boy, so I had another job that was, benefits and everything. So I wasn't sweating, although there was a time they brought in a dream job contestant. There wasn't a conversation, They just said, you're off today. So I was aware of that. I said this yesterday on a show, and I said, I was waiting for Stu Scott to come in and take over the show. It's a good show, right? And somebody said, you were waiting for Stugotz to come over and host the show? And I let them believe that. I'm like, yes, I was waiting for Stugotz to come over and host Around the Horn. I was waiting for the greatest cable network in the history of the medium to bring in one of their incredible, great talents, Rich Eisen, Stu Scott, Linda Cohen, name anybody,
Stugotz.
It never happened. So then we're on to the second year. I got a contract, and they brought in a voice coach to work with me, so I could sound a little bit more polished, I guess. What I took away from that, I'm happy to do all that work. What I took away from that was a tongue twister that I say before I go on TV every day. Irish wristwatch 5 times fast. Irish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch, opening up the back of my jaw. That happened. I worked with an interview coach who everyone at ESPN worked with. John Swatsky was his name. Open, neutral questions. I did the work, and I felt more comfortable with that, but I didn't feel fully comfortable until I was able to evolve the show a little bit more away from the host and onto the sports writers.
Do you have a most embarrassing moment, Tom?
Well, I thought I broke my finger muting Michael Smith, 2008, 2009.
I love, by the way, that you actually thought about this. You thought, because anyone who knows you knows that Tony would think about this. I don't want to be the guy who turns people's mics off.
No, that's true. I mean, come on. I get it. It's a fun mechanic. It's wonderful. I would, if I really had a business sense through the years, I mean, I would have been in a much better place today. But I would have been selling the mute button out on the street. I would have been, doing that. My kid buys Mr. Beast cotton candy or something like that, so that part of it, the mute button, the pressing of it, the tactile it's beautiful, and it's wonderful. It's a level playing field. It's great. You can't score a sports debate, Stu, no matter how you try, but you can do it in a certain way. You can have fun with it, and you can mute people, and you can direct traffic with that. So at one point I smacked it down. I thought, so we have somewhere, though I think it's been stripped because somehow we lost our YouTube page. The keys were taken away years ago. Now they reward you for having a YouTube page. 10 years ago, the keys were taken away by Bristol. So somewhere I was like this, on camera, and they rolled in the video to embarrass me, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed that. I used to do a prop fall. Is that what it's called? A pratfall? Where I would fall off my seat just to make people, this was either on Twitter or before Twitter, laugh at me. because I'm that type of ham. So I like to think, oh, look at this guy. He thinks he's so cool in the chair and he just fell. It was always going to commercial break. And I would always be like, whoa, and then that would be the last image they saw and they thought they got one on me. I'm content to do, much like, present company included, what it takes to do the job, and some days I was of mine to do that.
Tony, when you say that it feeds your personality, though, it's kind of like that ADHD. I have the same thing. It's like the show you have buttons, you have big buttons, you can push buttons, you bounce around, things go quick, it happens quickly, right?
Yeah. 44 different buttons I can press at any moment during the current show we're saying goodbye to. While a director's in my ear, potentially, not all the time, but just saying camera 5, camera 7, or 2 producers could be in my ear at that time. And of course, the 4 writers are talking at that moment, and I'm listening and scoring what they're saying. I'm trying to do it. I'll be honest with you. I've always tried to score the show, honestly. And when I'm giving points, I'm trying to affirm why. So it's not just ding, ding, doink, doink. But, maybe that's all you take away. So then I'm doing all that in this part of my head. And the other part is like, I could want to say something and sound coherent at the back end. So when everybody stops talking, then I gotta fill, right? So I'm aware of like 7 different voices at once plus buttons,
Yes. I love the show, Tony. I'm upset you didn't call me.
I've loved having you on as many episodes as we did. I mean, again, I evolved how I viewed it, and some people can say it needed to be a different way or whatever. You tried. Please tell me. There are headlines being written about us all week, and it's wonderful, and all of them are wonderful, and some of them could be critical. I would welcome you to have a critical view of it. I would put it up under the microscope. Well, have you thought about all the panelists that we had on through the years and exactly what they said and the 50,000 topics we had? You were upset with 10 of them. What is that? That's 0.01% of the topics. If you're upset with 100 of them, then that's 0.1% of the topics you were upset with if it was 1,000. So I can take all that. But what I liked was we had a crazy uncle sports writer. We had the basketball encyclopedia sports writer. We had the professor of journalism sports writer. Man, women. I liked opening it up to radio and someone like Bomani Jones or yourself think and see the world in a different way. And for me, that's how the debate should go.
One of the great calls I got while working at ESPN was, the first call I got was from Aaron Solomon. He asked me to do the show finally after years of begging.
There was a movement. There was a movement afoot.
There was, but it was the call, and this speaks to what kind of person you are and your personality. Right after the show, I am driving home, and I am zooming out of there at the Clevelander because Lord knows if you leave South Beach anytime after 2:00 and you have to go where I have to go, which is Palm Beach, essentially, you're looking at a 3.5-hour drive. And I get a call, and I look at my phone, and it's from Tony Reali.
Yeah.
And this is why you're the greatest, Tony. You called me because I was wondering how I did. You don't know. Like, these things happen so quickly. You take your suit off, you put your clothes on, you get in the car, you sit in traffic for 3 hours, and you wonder, did I do good? Did I fuck that show up? How did I do? Reali calls me and says, Stugotz, you nailed it.
Yes.
I'll never forget that call.
It doesn't need to be positive reinforcement. I mean, I like to have a critical eye to myself. I mean, I think I have been appreciative in my jobs when people tell me what's cooking, I've needed that in other times when I've expanded, I wanted to hear. I want people to know where they're going, where they're looking, what they're hearing, what they should be looking at. Let's remove all that type of anxiety, because my secret to TV, for lack of a better word at the moment, is to make you forget you're on TV. Because that's what for this show, I wanted. We play music when we sit down before every show, John, and you know this. And I would ask whoever was sitting down first as a little bit of a, reward. You get to be the DJ. And Plashke always picks ABBA, and whatever. It's we make fun of them. But then now we're having that conversation, and then we remind ourselves what we're talking about. But then we're still lost on that, and then you forget, and then you're having a natural conversation. That's it. I wanted that real, unpredictable in the TV show, and then you're as much as anybody somebody who lives in that space. So that was what I was trying to reinforce with you in the moment. Like, I've been told before, be like this. I just told you, they brought a voice coach to working with me. Or I wore a suit for many years on this show. That's not who I am, right? So I am now appreciative of an industry that is going to take anybody how they are. And you can play up a character or play down a character if you like. Or you could be 1-to-1 ratio is how I try to operate, because that's what makes me feel right when I'm in that space. I can goof it up. I did an episode of Seinfeld once, for Halloween. People were like, good impression, and you already look like him because your face is like a horse, but you had to score the show. Stop with that. What's the deal with this? Oh, no. So I need to dial that down. I get it.
You're so great. What's the biggest blessing that show has given you, Tony?
Well, I'll say this, this is sad now, right? I went through the toughest moments of life with my wife and my family, and we lost our son in stillbirth, and we welcomed Enzo at the same time. And that's just the duality of life in your face. And I'm somebody who is a sharer. My wife is not. And we talked about this in advance, but be able to be open like that on TV, the way that I decided to be, of course, that felt for me like something. But what came back in return is what I'm talking about. I'm still getting notes sent to me about that, or just about people's lives. I've called people, send letters, they call people on the phone and they're home, they don't expect it. I've read some of the most heartfelt letters that I'm worried about the person on the other side of the letter. This was this week, John. And I'm still trying to get to somebody to pick up a phone because I'm worried about somebody. I don't know them, right? And so it's not all good, but right. It's all real and it's all full. So I never, especially in those early days, I couldn't even get my head around how do you have a conversation where you don't score the debate on the show that has the scoring system. You got to score it. You can't do anything heavy. You got to score it, or I would score something heavy and feel like stupid because ding, ding, ding would be in the background of something very heavy. But once, and again, I'll take feedback. The show was better before you opened up too much. Okay. But this was how I chose to do it and live my life. And some people appreciate what that is and others don't. And I get that. I'm a pleaser, but I can recognize people's tastes are what they are and they change. I know I've lived in my skin for 46 and a half years, John. I know when I'm in a room with somebody, we're getting along, No, but I mean, people have written things in the last week that are so nice. And then people have also written things about politics. Nobody ever in the world, in a room I'm in, somebody's like, Reali, you're too this politically? Are you serious? Do you know my family? You don't know my family. I'm the guy who wore an ash on TV every day for 23 years. Okay, that's who I am. I mean, that I have to be able to take absolutely everybody says about the show. Because what it is with all communication, John, you know this, the second it comes out of mouth, it doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to you. So they will take whatever they say. I could say I would like to take back 4 or 5 or 10 things I said in 5,000 episodes. I can be completely truthful. Yes, it meant the show went one way for you. 10 things I said in 5,000 episodes, I can live with that. Nobody from Bristol ever called me. Full stop. Period. In 23 years. But maybe I talked twice in my life and it was always keep on doing what you're doing. There was never a controversy. There was never anything, never in a million years. You can't go a week now and hear about other people who are in stuff. You have never heard about that with the show. Not once.
Yeah. Me and Levitar were getting 5 calls a day. I mean,
precisely. Jesus. So I'm a confident person. I have a very thick skin about some things. And I'm more than happy to have any conversation with anybody that's in good faith at all times, which is why I liked going on Twitter. People, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but I'm happy to go on there and meet people. And that's what I want to do going forward, John. I want to have some great jobs in sports, and I will. The best and the biggest sporting events, and I will. But I also think there's still a place. What's real? It's connecting with people. And this is what the last 6 months reaffirmed to me. I already knew this to be true, but I'd love to play around the horn with the viewers somewhere in a digital space where you don't have to worry, is it getting whatever? I don't know if ESPN cares about ratings. Our show's rating very well. So I don't think it was about that, but I'm just saying I can go in a digital forum. I don't care who's watching it, but I want to give people an experience.
I'm in on that, by the way. All right.
Yeah, I think you'd be great on that.
The digital version of
digital
Around the
version
Horn,
of Around the Horn with average fans, just dropping on my website, TonyReali.com, and just ripping it at 5 o'clock. I can do that for a long time. I'd be happy to do that.
I'd be happy to be there with you, Tone. Mount Rushmore. Okay, I'm going to put you in a bad spot, but give me the Mount Rushmore of Around the Horn panelists.
I've thought about this because no one's had the onions to ask that question, by the way. So thank you very much, John. No one's like, let's put Reali on the spot. They've all asked it in a different way. How
I think it's an obvious four, Tony. I don't think you're going to upset anyone. So
no, of course not. But this is not about upsetting. This is my Mount Rushmore isn't who's best. My Mount Rushmore is who would literally survive on Mount Rushmore. Who are the last 4 surviving debaters? We're talking about endurance. We're talking about expert analytical arguments. We're talking about the will to do what the other person won't in a sports debate. And for me, it starts with Bob Ryan.
Yep.
Now we're talking peak Bob Ryan. You're not getting Tony, let me tell you another thing, Tony. It's not about it's the elbow jumper is the most important shot in the game, not the 3-pointer, Tony. All right. Oh my God, I can't believe I just did that.
He's right, by the way. I mean,
okay, so that Bob Ryan. Yeah. Encyclopedic in his sports and his love. You know what? So Bob Ryan, Woody Page is the goat of Around the Horn, and he won the debates, and he would be indefatigable in some ways. So that would be great. I have a wild card here in this, and it's Sarah Spain.
Wow.
Sarah Spain, a force of nature, from back when forces of nature were still forces of nature.
Yes.
Pointiest elbows that we had on our show. She would cut you. You wouldn't even know you were bleeding, but you look down and there'd be a pool of blood at your feet.
Yeah.
Be very poetic and about it. And it felt
we called her the commissioner on our show. She would just,
the
next thing you like, she would just say something, and the next thing you knew, you were laying on the floor dying.
And the last spot, and this is going to sound like I'm serving. No other person we came across in our universe, even Lil Wayne, who's won Grammys, or even had a movement come out and say he needs to be on the show like you did, Stu. So it would be between Stu and Bomani Jones would be my last 2. Because Bomani's never lost a sports debate. He's just allowed it to end.
Right.
But the Stu Army would be somehow able to transport you the weapons you need to conquer Mount Rushmore in that moment. That's how I would answer it for you.
I like that, Mikey. Yeah, you feel like he's only saying that to me because I'm the one doing the interview right now, right?
He's the only one who asked. You know what, though? Having the Guillons to ask that question, it puts you higher up. Dan Patrick's not asking that question. I mean, let's be honest here still.
Right. Yeah. Tim Collishaw is going to be so pissed. So is Jackie.
Oh, God, I love him so much. Love him so much. Because he had the dry sense of humor. That was great about that. He still doesn't know what show Woody was doing. He knows we're doing Around the Horn, but I don't know what show that guy's doing.
Right. He's so it's just such a fantastic to have sports writers and journalists kind of come out of their shell, and you get to see for the first time, like you get to see a little bit behind the scenes with Bob Ryan and what he's all about. I thought that was the best part of the show. We don't know these people, and you brought it out of them, Tony.
That was the goal. Thank you for saying that. I mean, now we can recognize, when this show gets signed off on Friday, it will be the end of that journalism on deadline writers appearing on TV. Tony and Mike, I love them. They're journalists with a capital J, but they're not writing on deadline for the Washington Post this week. Tim Collishaw, we were up in the air 2 days ago about whether he was going to even be able to be on the last show of Around the Horn that he's given his life to because Stars Oilers is playing in Edmonton that weekend. Wow. And we can't, I'm going to get him a shot, a road camera. That's what I've said. So we got guys on deadline. So when we're gone, that's it. There ain't no more of that type of show. Now we're seeing, of course, athletes coming out and having wonderful podcasts. And I know we can appreciate what that is, but we could also see with our eyes how it's different, right? And it's different.
Tony, I'll get you out of here in just a second. I'm going to say a few names that I know are important to you, and you say whatever you want about those people, okay? The final episode of Around the Horn coming up this Friday, 5 o'clock on ESPN. Eric Reinhold.
Well, he gave me so much freedom. Honestly, it was a gift to be able to know I could go into a show every day and just start cooking. And I mean, he's the one who interviewed me for PTI and picked me out and said, you're going to be Stat Boy too. So, I mean, I would say we call him the genius, for a reason. But the genius as it applied to Around the Horn, and for me, was he gave all of us all the space to play.
He is a genius. There's no question about it. Matt Kelleher.
Matt Keller is, my best friend.
One of the greats.
One of the greats.
Yes.
Godfather to his child. He's godfather to my child. That's all I need to say about that. I will say he's the most underrated person in the entire ESPN universe and in the entire PTI story, more specifically. The most underrated person is Matt Keller. Makes that show go, makes that show be the success it was, is in the trenches every day with Kornheiser and Wilbon. But I just said the word genius, so I need to come up with a word that's better than genius, because I feel like there's a masterful nature to my friend Matt Kelleher, and
he had this unique ability.
Wait, please, let me hit the button here. He's the best man I know.
He's the best man you know. He has this. Listen, he has a unique ability, and this is difficult to do. Just looking at Matt, he can get hosts just to calm down and slow down. He did it to me all the time.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah. Best man I know.
He's awesome. Aaron Solomon.
Aaron Solomon is the muscle of Around the Horn. He is what makes it move. He's the one who keeps us on. Keep it short.
Yes.
Buy or sell answers is the first thing that came to mind. Yes. He had to work with a host who was 25 and absolutely tireless and absolutely, my ears needed to be opened a little bit more to other suggestions through the years because I have such a bright view. So he was able to work with me, and that is not something I take for granted, and I'm thankful for that.
Last one, Woody Page.
Woody Page. Nobody would feel this way but me, because I know him a little bit differently. I mean, there's a heart in there. I know how much those wins and those losses really meant to him. I know how he's viewing Friday's show. I mean, it's existentially. This is the end of a show. What's the next, ending? I know that. I'm going to think of two moments, at my apartment and him dunking on my kids. Dunk on a rim in the basement. And I'm going to think of standing right next to him and introducing him at a benefit dinner for suicide prevention. Joan Rivers, Woody Page, and myself. I mean, what a great room that was. Joan was wearing 6-inch heels, and I had to kind of like help her down the stairs. But I remember, so it's about heart with Woody. One more name, I'm going to say Josh Bard.
I forgot that name, Josh.
Right.
I'm sorry. Don't get mad at me, Josh.
Maybe
Josh,
even Kelleher, of course,
final episode.
Kelleher's the PTI universe, and Josh Bard is the Around the Horn universe. This is your life reality. I'm just going through all the people. And Josh Bard is also, a brain and a soul of Around the Horn, and the way he works with the panelists every day. But also, he was the one that would say, "Okay, that's all right, Reali, here we go," and I love him for that.
There's nothing like getting laughter from Josh Bard in your ear set.
Good laughter, good laugher, and better jokes. He was a ghostwriter for a lot of the jokes and ghostwriter for a lot of the scripts.
Tony, man. So listen, you have a godfather. You have some of your best friends. You created a family and Around the Horn.
I think so. I needed more of a godfather in the industry. I would say that this is one of the things I learned.
Well, Reinhold is that, isn't he?
Well, yes, but he plays Godfather in a different way. I mean, I'm happy and happy to be taking and meeting so many great people who are now who know where the doors are in this industry.
Right.
That's what I'm looking. I'm going to be opening doors now, and that's it. That's pretty exciting.
What do you want to do next?
I want to do everything. I want to have one of the best. No. I say that. I've done one show. Hey, I've done one show for 23 years. I want the exact opposite of that now. It fit my personality and my energy in some ways. I want to be with the biggest sports in the world, biggest game of the year and the biggest sports in the world. And I want to do meaningful, heartful television there. It doesn't mean game call. Doesn't mean a chair that exists right now. I want to invent the next chair. I want to do game shows. I love game shows. I wrote game shows when I broke into this business. I love how interactive we can be right now in game shows. And that's another way to stick with people. I want to do kid shows. I want to do parenting shows. I want to do things like that. I want to be a spork. All right. I want to be living in this space. And then I go this, I go this, I go this, I go this. That's where I want to be.
I love that. That feeds your personality. Mikey, I had a question here on the way out, but also at the very end here, what I would like to do is for the three of us to try to pronounce Iris wristwatch and say it 5 times quickly together. Okay. Mikey, hey, go ahead.
I'm wondering if there's anybody who would say something bad about Tony Reali.
Oh,
is there
I'm sure
anybody out there?
Well,
no, that you know.
I said Kornheiser.
I have been sitting here reading.
Kornheiser called me twice
Tony
while we were
Reali.
doing the show. Kornheiser called me twice while we were
That was
the
the
air.
beat. Mikey A was going to tear your head off. I mean, he was freaking out.
I just assumed it was you.
Well, I will say this, Mikey. Once you asked that question, the light did come on me, right? So we know the Pope is a sports fan. So there we go. Okay. I'm not drawing. People I know like, oh, you should run for president. That's been said of people. I should run for Pope. Okay. That's a joke. Oh no, there was a time in my life, Mikey, and Levitar knows this more than Stu knows, where I was a very energetic young man who would take liberties with refs in CYO games and all these other type of 3-on-3 and 5-on-5 leagues where I would argue calls. Most importantly, I would know it was not that referee who gave me the fouls call. It was another. That's not your call. That's not your call. I am a goody two shoes, Mikey, and I am a pleaser, and I like to live a stress-free life, which means, treating other people like I like to be treated. But I also have a strong personality, and I'm a contrarian. So there are plenty of times there needs to be conflict in a newsroom, in an office space to get the best show out. And I'm not a doormat. I will never be accused of being a doormat, even though you want to be a kind person in life. You're not a doormat, right? Don't let people walk over you. So, so they're fine people. Please go ahead. I can sleep great at night knowing, I did my best, and that other people are going to take it where they want, whenever you're in a relationship with somebody.
Tony, I'll just say this. I remember the first time I knew how loved you were. I am also a Fordham Ram, and I was in college, and you were coming back to call a game for Fordham.
Oh boy.
And I'll never forget, I couldn't get in the arena. And it had nothing to do with the basketball team. It was because you were going to be there. I was calling Bob Aarons
you in the arena, Mike.
I was calling Bob Aarons to get me in the arena, and he couldn't do
Bob
it.
Aarons, yes. Well, now that I know this, oh my goodness. Yeah, I think it's important to you want to feel good about yourself. Do things for other people. I think that's important. I don't want to say this too much, but I knew I was on TV, an international TV, and in 120 countries, and with a lot of great young people watching specifically. And I'm comfortable modeling how one way is to go through life. And that doesn't mean it's the right way. That doesn't mean I might not blow up at a CYO referee every now and then. But you know what? I made a joke on TV once that I hated. It was about Mitchell Trubisky, the quarterback. And it was about, you know what it was? It was a joke on myself, but I wanted to not feel bad. I had a terrible paper toss. This is ridiculous that I'm admitting this. I had a terrible paper toss. And then I said I Mitchell Trubisky'd it, right? And then I'm like, oh God, what am I doing? I'm the one who had a bad throw. Now I'm making a joke about somebody else who's only one of the 60 greatest athletes in the world at his profession, right? Fit 30, really, at that time.
It's a funny joke, though.
Well, what did I do? I got a hold. I made the calls that I needed to make. I admitted it immediately on social media, tried to amplify it as much as I could, say, you know what I did there? That was about me. That wasn't about them. This is how, what is his cause? Cleats for a cause? What is his donation here? Let's talk about what Mitchell does really great. Who's the person behind that? My bad. Move on, right? That's one way to do that. I can understand. I drew more attention to myself afterwards, and now, oh, he's so nice for doing that. But that's how I felt. I was in tears at 5:32. My wife was sitting right next to me. It was during the pandemic. I remember this. These are the things that stick with you. I'm like, why did I do that? So I feel a lot, guys. John, you know this. So that's what that was. That probably wasn't the right reaction. The right reaction was to apologize, but I shouldn't have been feeling that way. And that's why go to talk therapy, or that's why I'm a big believer in that.
You're everything I wish I could be. I mean, seriously.
I mean, you say it like that.
I would make that Trubisky joke and not even think for a second about it. Okay.
Well, it is a joke, and I can acknowledge that's more hyper reactive on my end. But once it played out that way, I also live publicly. Let's draw this out and show people. I mean, I respond to people who are very critical on Twitter, and they're eggs, right? And they got 3 followers. And everyone knows what that is. That ain't a real person. But I respond and I retweet it out because I work in TV and we have re-airs. So I have no problem redoing things and posting it over and over again as a model to this is how I show you where I was coming from. I'm going to model my intention. I thought about what I was doing there. Yes, you're right. I probably could have gone back to them this way. Or yes, you're right. I could have framed it this way. Here's what I was thinking. And then you move on. And you don't just say, I hope you go back into a cave,
Yep. Tony, what are you going to miss most?
What am I going to miss most? I don't know.
I think it's the pre-show shit, man. There was nothing better. I mean, the stuff before the show was better than the stuff on the show. I mean,
that's what it is for everybody. The pre-show stuff,
the locker room,
the in between the commercial breaks was great. I still found out things about my friends. Woody Page told us a story about hanging out at Elvis Presley's house and eating those sandwiches, the bacon, peanut butter, mayonnaise sandwich or marshmallow sandwich with Elvis's aunt. And that was like last month. And I'm like, how did this not come up in 23 years? Bob Bryan,
24 years.
Yeah, Bob Bryan last month telling us stories. So that's the stuff you miss.
Tony, it's been a tremendous run. You're a tremendous person, a tremendous host, and a great friend. And congratulations to you. I do feel like we're doing a recap of your career. You're just fucking getting started.
I'm not going anywhere. I mean, right. I hope you guys see me on YouTube next week. The page is up and running next week. My website up and running next week. It's not going anywhere. I'm going to be in Miami for a week in June. This is happening. Yeah.
All right, we'll see you down here. Congratulations to you. Great run. And to the entire crew. What a show. What a run. You don't have runs like that often in TV. And for you, Tony, to host it for 22 years. What an incredible ride, man. Best of luck to you moving forward. Appreciate your friendship. And I appreciate that show very much. I love that show. I'm going to miss that show. I'm going to miss you, Tony.
Thank you, Johnny. You know what I owe it all to?
Me.
Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Say it with
Irish
me.
Wristwatch. All right. I'm going to count us down.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Irish wristwatch.
Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Swiss wristwatch. A batch of mixed wristwatches. Russell Westbrook. The rascally Russell Westbrook wears an Irish wristwatch. The rascally Russell Westbrook wears an Irish wristwatch.
Love you, buddy. You look happy.
Man. You see, that was the way all these interviews should go. All right.
Yes. Thank you.
Stugotz, I want to tell you something. We just talked to Tony Reali for 35 minutes, and I'm going to say something that I don't know that I've ever said about anyone or any guest we've ever had. Right. I would be very proud if I raised my son to be like him.
Yeah. Yep.
He's
because he lives life the right way, is what you're saying.
He really does, and it's not. And we have people on that I love, that I adore, that I think is some of the nicest people, but he lives life the way I would strive to, and that's probably as high a compliment as I can give somebody.
Yep. He's what you want your children to turn out to be.
Yeah, he really is. Like, and it's not just a kindness. It's not just a niceness. It's also a strength to, like, he doesn't back down from anything. He's not afraid to say what he wants to say, but he also says everything with a level of respect that oozes out of him. And that's not something you find a lot of.
No, I agree with everything you just said. He's a great friend. He's been a mentor. He's been a huge help for me in my career. I will only say this, though. That Mitchell Trubisky shit. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
You would love that low-hanging fruit.